His enemies couldn't destroy Roman DeLuca until he married the wrong woman. Isabella Quinn was supposed to be invisible. Smile at the galas, stay in the penthouse, ask no questions. But then she did the one thing no one else dared to do. She saw through him, through the cold eyes, through the power, through the cruelty. She saw the widower, the son of a monster, the man still drowning in guilt. And the second she mattered to him, Roman stopped being untouchable. He became target number one.
Let's watch this tragedy unfold together. Isabella Quinn's submission didn't start with romance. It started with a gun and a family's deep betrayal. Roman DeLuca, a ruthless crime boss, didn't ask for her permission. He ordered her to strip, breaking down her identity piece by piece. To him, she was just a transaction, a cold business asset. But watch Isabella's face, the slight shift in her jaw. No tears, no begging. She holds her captor's dark gaze, locking into pure, primal survival. She makes a silent vow to outlast his grip, even if this twisted arrangement breaks her heart in the end. If you and I want to understand how she survived this nightmare, we need to rewind the tape to the very beginning. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments before we go any deeper into the dark. Now, look at the dress. That wedding gown cost more than the childhood home she grew up in. Pure white silk, delicate, hand-stitched lace, a brutal reminder of the Mafia world she was being dragged into. It hung in her tiny, cramped bedroom like a ghost, beautiful but entirely suffocating. Isabella sat frozen on her worn mattress, her eyes glued to a crumpled eviction notice, the piece of paper that sealed her tragic fate. Just 3 days left. 3 days until Isabella Quinn ceased to exist, swallowed whole to become Mrs. Roman DeLuca. A life she never wanted, bought and paid for because of her father's crippling gambling debts and her brother's dangerous mistakes. Izzy? The sound of her name broke the silence. Her 17-year-old brother Marcus stood in the doorway, fighting back a rising wave of sheer panic. His left arm rested in a sling. The brutal bruises on his face were starting to fade, but the raw terror in his eyes told a much darker story. He quietly asked how she was holding up. Isabella forced a tight, brittle smile. "I'm fine," she whispered. Marcus knew she was lying. She knew he knew, her trembling hands endlessly smoothing down the old clothes she hadn't changed out of in 2 days. Marcus quickly locked the door, a fragile attempt to keep the monsters out of their crumbling apartment. He begged her to run away with him. She shook her head, crushed by the heavy reality that nobody escapes DeLuca's crime family. Quietly, Isabella straightened the desk, lining up the devastating eviction notice right next to her forced marriage contract. Heavy cardstock, elegant black ink, a chilling document declaring Roman DeLuca owned her. Isabella knew how men like him operated. They always locked down what belongs to them. Marcus hated seeing her treated like property, his anger boiling over as he cursed their father's betrayal. The man had vanished 2 weeks ago, trading his own daughter's life to wipe his gambling debts clean. Isabella felt numb thinking of him. A broken part of her hoped he felt guilty, but deep down she knew he didn't care. Marcus choked out a sob, drowning in his own guilt. Isabella pulled him close, careful not to bump his broken arm. She spoke softly, desperately trying to ease his heavy conscience, telling him his reckless mistakes were only made because he was trying to protect their mother. She held him tightly, calling her forced marriage a simple family duty just to calm his tears. When Marcus warned her that Roman was a cold-blooded killer, she put on a brave face, pretending she wasn't terrified. This is where the story shifts. You and I need to look back at the very first time she met her captor. The DeLuca estate wasn't just a home. It was a fortress built to crush your spirit. 3 weeks ago, his men dragged her there. She walked past heavy security and armed guards, stepping into a massive chilling room that felt heavy with danger. Roman DeLuca sat at the heart of it all. Isabella felt the air instantly freeze, her body reacting like prey cornered by a wolf. He sat perfectly still against the blinding window light, keeping his face hidden in the shadows just to make her tremble. The moment their eyes met, the horrifying reality of who he was crashed down on her. Roman DeLuca had absolutely no warmth in him. Every inch of his tall, rigid frame screamed of controlled, deadly violence. His perfectly tailored suit looked more like dark armor. When his cold eyes locked onto hers, Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs, the sheer panic of a trapped animal taking over. He told her to sit, It wasn't a request, feels. He casually tossed a thick folder onto the desk, wielding it like a weapon. He laid out her family's ruin, her father's $800,000 debt, piled on top of the $60,000 her brother owed his men. Isabella started shaking, feels, desperately trying to explain that they had no money left. He didn't even blink. He just slid the paperwork forward, revealing the inescapable trap he had spent weeks perfectly setting up, feels. Then he offered his twisted way out. She stared at the contract designed to strip away her freedom. To erase the massive debts her father and brother left behind, Isabella had to marry Roman DeLuca for 36 months, feels. The rules were suffocating. She had to live in his house, smile for the cameras as his loving wife, and stay silent about his criminal empire. She looked him dead in the eye, accusing him of buying a person. He calmly corrected her, feels, calling it acquiring an asset, a chilling response from a man with ice in his veins. Not a single muscle moved in his face as he listed why he chose her. She was young, educated, and had a clean record. To him, she wasn't a human being, feels. She was just a perfect resume, feels. He wanted her innocent image to make his bloody mafia business look respectable to the outside world. When she dared to ask what that business was, he shut her down instantly. Isabella's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she read through the terms, feels. Grasping for any sense of control, she asked what would happen if she just said no. Roman didn't raise his voice at all. He simply promised to break her brother's bones, throw her sick mother out onto the street, and hunt down her father, feels. His heartbeat never even spiked. He gave her a brutal choice: move into his mansion and play the perfect, adoring wife, or watch her entire family burn. There was no real choice here at all. It was total blackmail wrapped up in fancy legal paper, feels. She signed her life away on the dotted line. And now, 3 days before the wedding, staring into her cracked mirror, she barely recognized the ghost staring back, feels. The girl in the glass looked completely shattered. Deep, hollow bags under her eyes, pale skin. She was surviving on nothing but black coffee and pure adrenaline-fueled panic. She had lost so much weight lying awake night after night, feels. Haunted by a man who treated ruining a life like a simple corporate takeover. A sudden buzz from her phone broke the silence. A cold, demanding text stating a car would pick her up at 10 in the morning. No name attached, feels. Just a heavy demand pulling her into the dark. Isabella stepped into the shower, letting the scalding water burn her skin until the tank ran completely cold. She was desperately trying to wash away the sickening fear of belonging to a monster, feels, but nothing worked. The clock kept ticking. The black SUV pulled up to the curb at exactly 10 the next morning, feels. The massive car had tinted, bulletproof glass, hiding her from the world. The driver, an older, dead-eyed mob enforcer named Vincent, threw her duffel bag into the trunk without saying a word. Saying goodbye felt like tearing out her own heart, feels. Her mother wept quietly in the doorway, while Marcus looked ready to throw a punch. Isabella forced a bright smile, promising she'd call every single day to keep them from breaking down. When Marcus cried out that Roman was going to hurt her, feels. She looked him in the eyes and swore she'd be safe. It was a desperate lie. She just needed to believe it herself so she wouldn't collapse on the pavement. As the car tore away from her rundown neighborhood toward the glittering city, feels, every second felt like a lifetime, feels. Watching through the dark window, she saw her crumbling life fade into extreme, dangerous wealth. The broken streets turned into towering high-rises, finally stopping at the DeLuca estate, a massive, terrifying glass fortress, feels. Vincent led her through private security doors, taking a silent elevator straight to the penthouse. The inside was designed to make you feel incredibly small. Huge, sweeping views of the skyline completely swallowed her up, feels. Everything was painted in cold shades of black, white, and gray. The whole place felt like a beautiful, freezing tomb, completely empty of any human love. Suddenly, a sharp voice shattered the silence, feels. Isabella quickly turned to see an older woman standing perfectly straight, looking exactly like a prisoner who had learned to survive, feels. Picture the scene. The housekeeper Ella stood rigid, her severe posture a survival mechanism in a house of predators. As her gaze swept over Isabella's faded clothes, a flicker of tragic pity cracked her marble expression, feels. She led her down dimly lit halls to her new cage. The bedroom was suffocatingly vast, shadows stretching across cold floors. A closet full of predetermined outfits waited, erasing Isabella's identity entirely, feels. The sheer luxury of the space was destined to crush her spirit, reminding her she was just another beautiful bird trapped in a gilded, inescapable prison. Heels. Alina coldly announced dinner was at 7. Formal wear required. Isabella desperately begged for any clue about the man who bought her, but the housekeeper simply turned away. Sitting on the edge of that massive velvet bed, Isabella choked back a sob. Heels. The heavy silence of the room felt like a physical weight. At 6:30, the sharp click of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Roman DeLuca had arrived. Watch closely as we frame this moment. Swallowed by a black silk dress, Heels. Her hands trembled. She fought for every breath, terrified of the tragic bond beginning to take root. Heels. Let's watch together as the room's energy darkens the second Roman enters. He moved with the heavy grace of a man who owned the world. Seeing her, a flicker of surprise softened his eyes before he tossed his jacket aside. "We're getting married. Use my name." She nodded. Completely paralyzed, he poured a whiskey. "We'll eat." The dining room echoed with silent intimidation. Elena served perfection, but Isabella couldn't swallow past the terror tightening her throat. Heels. She could feel his dark, unreadable gaze burning into her skin. "You settled in?" he asked. "Yes, good." He cut his food with chilling precision. "The wedding is in 2 days. There will be approximately 200 guests, mostly business associates." Heels. "You'll smile, greet them appropriately, and stay by my side." "Okay. After the ceremony, we'll host a reception here. It will run late. You'll need stamina." Desperation pushed her to seek his true motive. "Can I ask you something?" Heels. "Depends on the question. Why me?" Heels. "The reasons are in the terms." "That's not what I mean," she pressed. "You're rich, you're powerful. You could have anyone. So, why buy a wife you don't want?" His voice dropped. "Who said I don't want you?" he countered. The contradiction struck her. Heels. "You said this was business." "It is," he stated. "Then you're useful, Isabella. You'll help me maintain appearances, legitimize certain operations, and provide stability where I need it. What I want is irrelevant." He walked, leaving her to the vast, Heels shadowed silence. Heels. The heavy tragedy of her sleeplessness painted dark circles under her eyes. At 2 in the morning, she drifted like a ghost into the dimly lit kitchen. There sat the devil himself, bathed in the blue glow of a screen, nursing a whiskey. "Can't sleep?" he asked. No, Isabella hesitated, desperate for an illusion of normalcy. "Sorry, I didn't know you'd be up." Heels. "I don't sleep much." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken tragedy. "Nervous?" he asked. "Don't be. It's just a performance. For you, maybe." Isabella pushed back, a sudden spark of fiery survival in her eyes. "For me, it's my life." Roman's jaw clenched tight. "I think you don't care." "You're wrong," he murmured. For one fleeting second, the monster's mask slipped, revealing a deeply wounded soul underneath. "Then why does it feel like I'm being punished?" she asked. Heels. He stepped dangerously close, the rich scent of his dark cologne wrapping around her. "Because you are, just not by me." "What does that mean?" He left the tragic riddle hanging in the air. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long." The wedding was a heartbreaking blur of flashing cameras. Drowning in a sea of 200 strangers, she whispered sacred vows to a man who bought her soul, her eyes entirely hollowed out. Heels. Sliding the diamond onto her finger looked devastatingly like chaining a prisoner. Their brief, cold kiss was nothing but a business transaction. The reception was a beautifully lit nightmare. Heels. Roman's hand burned possessively against the small of her back as he paraded her around. Elite strangers applauded the tragic illusion, blind to her quiet suffering. Isabella forced a radiant smile. Heels. Playing the perfect bride until her legs shook from sheer exhaustion. It was past midnight when the final guest left. Heels. When the door clicked shut, the penthouse turned cold as a tomb. They stood among the wilted flowers of their fake romance. Roman poured a drink while Isabella kicked off her agonizing heels. "You did well. You were convincing." "Thanks." "So, were you?" He studied her. "Was I?" She stood in a gown worth thousands, chained to a ruthless stranger, fighting back a wave of gut-wrenching despair. Heels. "I'm going to bed." Roman stepped closer, the tension suddenly suffocating. Take off the dress," he commanded quietly. Her heart plummeted, terror gripping her throat. "The dress! Take—" "Roman, this marriage is business." His eyes turned pitch black. "You mean nothing to me. Don't forget that." The cruelty was a calculated knife twist to her soul. Isabel stood completely frozen, desperately searching the shadows of his face for any sign he was lying. Heels. He gave her nothing. His gaze was an empty abyss. "You're an asshole," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know." She finally broke, running down the dark halls before collapsing in a flood of tragic tears. That first agonizing weeks set a bleak tone. Roman was impeccably polite, yet as distant as a ghost. They ate dinners in a beautifully lit room, but the air between them was choked with a heavy, heartbreaking silence. Feels. Isabella slowly learned to dance in her chains. Robbed of her freedom, she drifted through the heavily guarded mansion like a tragic heroine. Over the phone, she spun bright lies to her mother, unknowingly guarding her monster's secrets. On the 8th day, she stumbled upon a dimly lit, hidden library. It became her sanctuary, the only room with a heartbeat. That's where Roman found her, curled up small in her pajamas, looking heartbreakingly soft and defenseless in the warm lamplight. Feels. I didn't know you'd found this room. Is it okay that I'm here? It's your home. Doesn't feel like it. Shadows of a heavy burden darkened Roman's face that afternoon. Rough day? She asked, her voice surprisingly gentle. You could say that. Want to talk about it? No. He stared out at the gray, weeping city skyline, locking his demons away. You read a lot? He asked softly. When I can. What kind of books? Anything. Fiction. Mostly stuff that doesn't feel like real life. Feels. Escape. Yeah, I get that. For a fleeting second, their broken souls seemed to mirror one another. Can I ask you something? Depends. Why did you really marry me? I told you. Business, I know, but there's more to it. You don't need a wife for appearances. Men like you do what they want, and don't apologize reason. Let's pause and watch this daring pivot together. See how desperately she searches his stormy eyes for just one single drop of truth. Feels. The steel doors of his heart slammed shut. Don't dig into things you can't handle. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. As the second week faded, a toxic romance began to bloom. A white rose appeared by her bed in the quiet dark. His brooding eyes followed her every move. They were locked in a tragic dance, two lonely ghosts quietly studying each other, slowly surrendering to the twisted passion of their shared, gilded prison. Feels. Now, let's step into this tragic descent together. After 6 agonizing hours calming her mother's financial terrors, Isabella drifted into dinner looking utterly shattered. Roman caught her fragile state in a heartbeat. What happened? He demanded. Isabella choked out the truth. Her mother was terrified the ruthless mafia boss would demand blood for rent. In their dark world, beautiful gifts always came with a devastating catch. Feels. Roman moved like a shadow, offering a cold, calculated generosity. He promised to handle her mother's rent in writing, disguising his absolute ownership as a tender favor. Feels. The clash between his lifeless words and his soft voice left Isabella completely paralyzed. She spent the night staring at the ceiling, foolishly romanticizing her own cage. 3 weeks into this dark mafia arrangement, Feels. The brutal underworld shattered the illusion. At 2 in the morning, the door swung open. Roman stood there, his head dripping blood, clutching his bruised ribs. Feels. Isabella was already awake, her nerves completely wired. The moment the moonlight caught his bleeding face, panic set in. Her glass shattered on the floor. What the hell happened? She gasped. Roman offered nothing but cold silence. When she reached out, Feels. Desperate to check his wounds, his hand snapped up, locking around her delicate wrist in a swift show of brute force. Don't, he growled, pushing away her fractured attempt at mercy. But the frightened girl refused to back down. Her knees were shaking. Feels, yet she stood firm. Feels. She called out the monster, hiding in the dark, insisting she knew the predator he truly was. Yet, her desperate urge to clean his wounds betrayed the tragic psychological grip he already had on her. Roman pulled back into the shadows, a lone wolf guarding his secrets. You don't know anything about what kind of man I am, he warned, his voice like ice. When she pushed closer, he shut her out entirely. Go to bed. Isabella stood frozen, heart hammering against her ribs, terrified of her own defiance. Feels. Let's step into this tragic scene together. By dawn, Roman was a ghost. All he left was a sharply written note, proving he paid her mother's rent for 3 full years. It was a heavy golden chain, forged to keep her trapped. Feels. Isabella felt that agonizing emotional pull, the fatal trap of trauma bonding. Desperate to understand the villain holding the keys, she started testing the edges of her luxurious prison. She found his locked study. Feels. A childhood on the rough streets had taught her exactly how to open it. Feels. The lock gave way, and she slipped into his darkest room. The heavy mahogany walls were lined with crime ledgers, a shrine to his own power. Pushed by a fatal curiosity, she dug through the mob contracts until her fingers brushed against a secret. Feels. A photograph of a smiling, dark-haired woman. The back simply read, Forever Roman. Isabella felt the floor drop from under her. She could practically see the ghosts of his crushing grief. Searching deeper in the shadows, heels, she uncovered a stack of old faded letters. Heels. They were heartbreaking confessions from a woman named Caroline. The final page read like a tragic farewell, heavy with guilt, practically crying out for forgiveness. Isabella put everything back in the dark and slipped away to catch her breath. Heels. In her mind, she was rebuilding the broken pieces of the mob boss. Roman had survived crushing pain by turning his heart to stone, replacing love with ruthless iron-fisted control over everything he touched. Tragically, Heels, the trapped girl began to see the cold-blooded killer as a victim who just needed saving. Heels. She convinced herself his cruelty was just armor. When the crime lord walked in that evening, the lighting caught a strange hesitation in his step at the kitchen doorway. Isabella quietly offered him a cup of tea, Heels, a desperate human attempt to calm the beast. He took it. They sat in the heavy silence, the quiet finally easing her racing pulse. She looked down, whispering a genuine thank you for saving her mother, Heels, admitting the heavy burden it lifted off her shoulders. A faint, almost invisible smile softened Roman's hardened face. Heels. She quickly apologized for pushing him earlier, taking the blame entirely on herself. To her shock, Roman lowered his guard, softly admitting his own mistakes. When she teased him, he just nodded. Heels. That tiny crack in his armor revealed a hauntingly gentle soul underneath the monster, and in that fatal moment, something dark shifted inside Isabella. She started craving the dangerous man sitting across the table. Heels. The freezing air between them began to melt. This wasn't trust blooming. It was a tragic, twisted dance pulling them both closer to the edge. Heels. Roman stopped hiding in the shadows whenever he came home. Isabella, too, let her guard fall, truly seeing the exhaustion dragging down his shoulders. Tied together by sleepless nights, they found a strange morning rhythm. Heels. She wandered into the dim kitchen one day to find him staring at encrypted files, his jaw locked tight. She simply sat down, offering her quiet presence. The untouchable king let her stay in his private world. A month later, Heels. Eating breakfast together at 7 sharp became their silent anchor, the only peaceful escape from their violent reality. Heels. Barely a word passed between them, but the air felt remarkably calm. Isabella studied him like a painting. She noticed the foods he hated, the intense way his eyes scanned the morning news for threats, and the faded scar on his left hand. Heels. When the tension peaked, he had a nervous habit. His thumb would slowly rub his wedding band. She wondered if he did the exact same thing when Caroline was alive. Swallowing her dark thoughts, she locked the secret of those hidden letters away, Heels, terrified of lighting the fuse. Heels. You and I know how this tragedy unfolds. She looked at a ruthless killer and only saw a grieving man, completely blinding herself to the danger. One morning, the kingpin declared they were attending a high society gala. He demanded she go, treating her like a chess piece on his board. He had his staff pick her clothes. But then the script flipped. He looked her dead in the eyes, sending her pulse racing. His voice dropped as he warned her about the vicious, judgmental crowd waiting to tear her apart. Heels. He softly gave her a way out, showing a startling flash of real empathy, but she lifted her chin, promising him she could handle the fire. The tense muscles in his back finally relaxed. What will you do? Break their kneecaps? She teased. Heels. The corner of his mouth twitched into a wicked, dangerous smile. Isabella burst into genuine laughter, a bright sound cutting through the cold room. For one breathless second, the walls between them completely vanished. Then, Heels. His phone shattered the silence, ripping them right back to their cold reality. Heels. Stick with me here. We are watching a master manipulator rebuild his walls. He took the call, instantly freezing back into the stone-cold mob boss. Isabella walked away, feeling his heavy, wolf-like stare burning into her back. Heels. The gala at the Midtown Museum was her first real step into his underworld. Towering marble, stolen art, and rich predators wearing expensive suits. She was drowning. This was not a simple party. It was a criminal empire playing dress-up, Heels, where every smile was a weapon. Soon Roman's handler, Elena, zipped her into a shimmering dress that cost more than her life. Heels. The deep emerald silk clung to her skin, leaving her completely bare to the wolves. She tried to pull away, but Elena snapped the cage shut. You're Mrs. DeLuca now, she warned. You represent him. Act like it. Heels. Isabella slipped on the torturous heels and heavy diamonds that felt exactly like chains. She walked into the glowing ballroom, holding Roman's arm, faking a perfect smile. But she did not belong in this frame. Heels. Roman paraded her past dirty politicians and smiling judges. Their cold eyes silently asked why the underground king chose a poor girl from Queens. The diamonds couldn't hide her truth. Heels. You're doing great, Roman murmured, his breath hot against her ear. I feel like a fraud. You're not. Easy for you to say. You were born into this. A dark shadow crossed Roman's eyes. I wasn't born into anything. I built this empire. Heels. There's a difference. Before the fire, Kakach, a silver-haired man in a sharp tuxedo, stepped into their light. His wide smile hid a ruthless soul. Roman, the man beamed, reaching out. Good to see you. Roman matched the iron handshake. Senator. Heels. The older man's eyes slowly dragged over to Isabella. And this must be the lovely bride. Congratulations, Mrs. DeLuca. Heels. Thank you, Isabella whispered, accepting his hand. How did you two meet? The senator pried, laying his trap. I don't recall seeing you around here before. Through family, Isabella lied without missing a beat. It was quite unexpected. Heels. The best things usually are. The senator's eyes flicked back to Roman. You're a very lucky man. I know, Roman replied softly. His heavy hand slid down to rest firmly on her lower back, a clear, dominant mark of ownership. Excuse us, Senator. Heels. There's someone I need to see. He pulled her into the crowd. That guy's a creep, Isabella muttered once they were finally safe. Heels. Let's step into this high society snake pit together, shall we? He's on 3 oversight committees and takes bribes like a second job, Roman murmured, his voice dead. Makes him useful. You work with people like that? Isabella asked, sickened. Heels. I work with whoever I need to. Before her heart could fully sink, a woman dripping in diamonds cut them off, looking Isabella up and down like she was trash. Roman, darling, she cooed, kissing his cheek. I didn't know you brought a date. My wife. Heels. Roman corrected flatly. Isabella, this is Margaret Hastings. She runs tonight's foundation. Heels. Margaret's smile didn't reach her venomous eyes. Wife? How unexpected. I thought you swore off marriage after. She paused, letting the silence cut deep. Well, congratulations. Roman turned to stone. Heels. His hand gripped Isabella's waist so tight it bruised, a raw, haunted reflex. Desperate to break the tension, Isabella stepped in. The event is beautiful. You've done an incredible job. Margaret's cold gaze snapped to her, searching for a weak spot. Heels. Thank you. And what is it you do, dear? Pure and simple. The right answer meant survival. The wrong one meant she was dead meat. Heels. I'm exploring my options, Isabella said carefully. How modern. Margaret's smile was a razor blade. Roman's first wife was so devoted to charity. Cancer research, mainly. Such a heartbreaking tragedy. Beside her, Roman stopped breathing. Heels. Isabella's pulse hammered in her throat, but she kept her face perfectly still. I'm sure she was remarkable. Oh, she was. We all thought Roman would never recover, yet here you are. Margaret's eyes shined with cruel delight. Life moves on. Heels, doesn't it? Excuse us, Roman growled, his voice pure ice. He dragged Isabella away so fast she nearly tripped over her heels. Heels. They escaped to the bar. Roman needed to drown the memories, throwing back half a whiskey in one bitter swallow. I'm sorry, Isabella whispered. For what? That woman was horrible. Margaret is always horrible. It's what she does. Heels. Roman slammed his glass down, barely hiding his rage. I need air. He walked off, leaving Isabella alone in a room full of wolves. 20 minutes later, she found him outside in the dark. Jacket off, tie undone. He was falling apart. Heels. He didn't even turn around, but he felt her there. You didn't have to follow me, he muttered. I know. Heels. Then why did you? Isabella took a close testing the waters. Because you looked like you needed someone. I don't need anyone. Bullshit, that single word shattered his walls. Roman spun around, completely thrown. Excuse me? You heard me. Heels. You've spent weeks saying this arranged marriage means nothing, that I mean nothing, that it's just a transaction. But I see you, Roman. I see the white roses you secretly leave. I see how you freeze when anyone mentions her. His jaw clenched tight. Heels. Don't. Why? Because it's true. Fueled by pure adrenaline, she pushed right to his bleeding heart. Heels. You loved Caroline, and losing her broke you so deeply you're still bleeding. You built walls and called it strength. You bought a wife and called it business. But you can't outrun grief, Roman. It always catches up. Heels. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me I'm wrong. A heavy, dangerous silence hung in the night air. Roman's eyes darkened with raw, unbearable pain. When he finally cracked, his voice was a ragged whisper. She killed herself. Heels. The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. Caroline was sick, he confessed, years of locked-away agony finally pouring out. Heels. Stage 4 cancer. They gave her 6 months. She refused to just waste away, so she took pills while I was stuck at the office. When I found her, she was already gone. Isabella covered her mouth, her heart breaking for him. Roman. She left a letter. Heels. Said she was sorry, loved me, just couldn't fight anymore. He let out a hollow, bitter laugh. I've spent 5 years torturing myself, wondering if staying home would have saved her, if I had just loved her better. It wasn't your fault. Heels. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Heels. Isabella gently took his hand, a deeply human reach into his darkness. People make their own choices, Roman. Sometimes heartbreaking ones, but you didn't fail her. Roman stared at their intertwined fingers, too tired to pull away. After she died, Heels, I just went numb. I pushed the Mafia empire further, became ruthless just to feel something. Then your father's debt crossed my desk. I saw a way out. To do what? To prove I still had control. To pretend I was still a functioning man. Heels. He looked her in the eye, fully stripped bare. I'm sorry, Isabella, you deserved better than a broken man. Heels. Now you and I have to wonder, is she really falling for him? Or is this just survival in a gilded cage? I'm not some bandage, and you aren't using me, she said. Aren't I? No. A bandage doesn't fight back. It doesn't call you out. Heels. And it sure doesn't follow you onto dark balconies to call your bluff. She squeezed his hand tighter. I knew the dark romance I was stepping into. You're no monster, Roman. Just a bleeding man who forgot how to heal. Roman stared at her, completely lost. Heels. How are you this okay? I'm not. I'm terrified. My life was sold to a billionaire. But I'm surviving, just like you. Something in his hard eyes finally softened. Heels. The cold kingpin's armor finally cracked, leaving nothing but naked desire and deep-seated fear. We should go back inside, he murmured. Should we? People will talk. Let them. Roman's gaze dropped to her lips, making her breath catch in her throat. Heels. For one agonizing, beautiful second, the fake marriage melted into something terrifyingly real. Then his phone buzzed, ruining the magic. Roman stepped back, checking the screen, and his face turned to stone. We need to leave. Now, what's wrong? Heels. I'll tell you in the car, move. By the time the driver pulled up, the broken man was gone. The ruthless boss was back. Heels. Stick with me here. We're about to watch this dynamic completely fracture. In the car, Roman barked out deadly orders. When Isabella demanded answers, he told her someone had hit his syndicate's warehouse. A bloody message. For the first time, Heels, a flash of real panic crossed his face. He realized he had a weakness now, a wife his enemies could hurt. His instinct? Lock her in a cage. He confined her to the penthouse, completely ignoring her anger over the isolation. He demanded total obedience. Heels, throwing guards on every door. You should be terrified, he warned, using pure fear to keep her safe. Heels. He blamed his underworld life. His enemies wouldn't hesitate to butcher her just to destroy him. But his voice cracked mid-sentence, betraying his absolute terror. Pushed to the edge, Roman finally admitted the truth. She meant far too much to him. Heels. The heavy confession hung between them, shattering his untouchable mob boss image. But before Isabella could even process it, the car stopped. A guard yanked the door open, and Roman immediately pulled her close. Heels. He rushed her into the building with a fierce, overbearing grip, willing to do anything to keep her alive. Heels. The elevator ride was dead silent. Once inside the penthouse, Roman swept every single room like a madman, checking shadows and locked doors. It wasn't love. It was pure, blinding trauma. He kept pacing, Heels, repeating the security protocols just to calm his racing mind. When Isabella softly promised she was fine, his tough exterior completely shattered. Wild, desperate panic took over, Heels, and he finally cried out that he simply couldn't survive burying another wife. Seeing this powerful man crumble broke Isabella's heart. Throwing caution to the wind, she wrapped her arms around him, giving him the hug he desperately needed. Heels. Roman froze for a second before burying his face in her hair, holding onto her like a drowning man grasping a lifeline. In that dark embrace, Isabella made a dangerous mistake. She started trusting the man who bought her. But by sunrise, Heels, the billionaire's walls had slammed right back into place. Roman was gone, leaving only a cold text telling her not to leave the house. Isabella was furious. One minute he was bearing his soul, the next he was her warden again. Downstairs, Heels, the housekeeper could only watch as Isabella paced the living room, trapped in her golden cage. Heels. Picture the opening shot. Shadows cling to Isabella as she begs the housekeeper for an escape. But the older woman just stares back, an immovable stone bought by Roman's wealth. She admits she's exhausted, yes, Heels, but the blood money keeps her quietly complicit. Frustrated, Isabella pivots, desperate for any sliver of truth about Caroline, Roman's dead wife. The housekeeper flinches, a visceral, lingering terror. Isabella demands answers. Heels. her voice trembling under the crushing, suffocating weight of competing with a flawless, untouchable ghost. Feels. Let's examine this tragic exchange together. The housekeeper paints a faded portrait of Caroline, a doomed savior, bleeding her own heart dry to cure Roman's darkness, but a fractured man only knows how to possess. Isabella realizes she's took over obsession. The older woman's warning hangs heavy in the dim room. A dark romance with Roman guarantees collateral damage. He cannot love without destroying. And Isabella is standing right on the fault line. Feels. Cut to the sprawling, shadowy library. Isabella paces, completely lost, until the heavy thud of Roman's boots shatters the silence. He stands there, drained crimson staining his expensive suit. "Not my blood," he murmurs, a terrifyingly blank mask. Feels. He steps into the pale moonlight, swearing she is safe. She calls him a liar, and for a second a genuinely exhausted smile softens his jaw. Drawn into this fatal dance, her trembling hands reach up to fix his collar. Feels. The untouchable kingpin instantly freezes. Feels. She whispers her thanks for his brutal protection. Roman turns away, his broad shoulders tense, dismissing it as mere duty. Watch the hesitation in his eyes. He desperately wants to strip off the armor, but the wounds run too deep. Instead, Feels. His callous thumb gently traces her knuckles, a quiet plea disguised as a command to sleep. Both know he will spend the night staring into the abyss. Walking back to her cold room, the horrifying truth settles over Isabella. Feels. She is falling hopelessly in love with her captor. Feels. She is romanticizing a villain, a shattered man using absolute power to bury his grief. The twisted reality keeps her staring at the ceiling until dawn, but surviving a psychological thriller requires playing the game. Feels. Trading passive fear for quiet observation, she begins to study the intricate web of his empire. She watches the maids, the guards, tracing the invisible lines of terror and blind loyalty binding them together. Her soft eyes harden. Feels. Analyzing the quiet submissions and hidden betrayals lurking in the corners of his dark world. Feels. The camera pulls back to reveal the scale of his sins, a massive syndicate built on dirty money and blood. His polished charm hides the ruthless violence keeping his rivals at bay, but recent attacks aren't random. Enemies are testing his fortress. Cornering him in the sunlit hallway, Isabella demands a name. Roman's posture instantly hardens. He tries to brush, slipping back behind those impenetrable walls. His lethal underworld, he coldly warns, is no place for his bride to wander. Feels. Isabella refuses the sidelines, screaming that her life is on the line too. Roman watches her chest heave, calculating the fire in her eyes. He casually admits his crown attracts vultures, brushing off the mortal danger with maddening indifference. Feels. His apathy terrifies her. He actually smirks, mistaking her desperate panic for a lover's devotion. When she bites back with a sharp insult and hurls a glass across the room, the shattering noise is followed by something impossible. A low, Feels, unrestrained, beautifully genuine laugh escapes his chest. Feels. That rich, unexpected sound anchors her. He instantly chokes it down, burying the warmth, but the damage is done. The tragic bond has rooted. Later, driven mad by the manor's ghosts, she slips into his forbidden study. She calls it survival, but her trembling hands betray a sickening jealousy over Caroline. Pulling dusty letters from a hidden drawer, her breath catches. Devouring the dead woman's final thoughts feels like an unforgivable betrayal of the sacred dead. Feels. The fragile pages sketch a woman blindingly radiant, who projected pure grace onto a devil. At the very bottom lies the fatal blow, a suicide note. Caroline wrote it weeping, anticipating the crushing guilt Roman would carry. Feels. She chose the blade to freeze herself in time, to remain his perfect, untarnished angel, rather than let him watch sickness rot her away. She violently erased her own existence. Feels. Tragically convinced that shattering his heart once was kinder than making him watch her slowly fade into the dark. Feels. The letter ends with a desperate plea. Do not let the darkness win. The paper slips from Isabella's hands, the pieces finally locked together, his ruthless empire keeping her locked away. It isn't about power. Feels. It's a bleeding shield against the agony of being left behind again. Let's pause and look at this moment together. The temperature in the room plummets. Roman is standing right in the doorway. Did you find what you were looking for? He whispers. Feels. His eyes are dead black, completely masking the incoming storm. Feels. Let me show you how this climax plays out. Isabella falls apart, tears spilling as she begs for forgiveness. I shouldn't have, she sobs. Roman steps into the light, gently taking the parchment as if holding a live grenade. But I'm not surprised. Feels, he murmurs. She just wanted to map the ruins of his mind. He sets the letter down with agonizing slowness. Caroline thought her sacrifice would save him. He rasps. Instead, it broke his world. He found her cold body, heals, forever cursed with the crippling realization that his love wasn't enough to keep her breathing. Heals. The tragedy of his trauma is so clear now. He swore he'd never be that helpless boy again. He built a fortress of ice, total control, zero attachment, protecting his shattered soul from another fatal blow. Heals. Their marriage was supposed to be a hollow transaction. But Isabella was a wildfire. She broke his rules, screamed in his face, threw plates across his pristine rooms, and forced color back into his grayscale life. Heals. As he closes the distance between them, you can see the absolute terror in his eyes. The king's armor is finally cracking, and love is bleeding through. Heals. He whispers that it terrifies him. To him, affection is a loaded gun pointed at his own head. It's a devastatingly bare confession. Isabella slowly reaches up, the cap soothing her captor. Then we figure it out together, she breathes. Heals. Roman shakes his head, paralyzed by the fear of ruining her. Then we fall together, she replies, throwing her own survival to the wind. Roman stares, mesmerized, before pulling her flush against his chest, thumbing away her tear. Heals. He calls her a fatal mistake. She smiles back. He's already ruined her, yet she is never letting go. Heals. The final wall inside Roman shatters into dust. He pulls her in, trading the cold act of their arranged marriage for a frantic, oxygen-starved kiss. Isabella gives in completely, her chest heaving, a desperate heartbeat drumming against her ribs. Heals. When they finally break apart, gasping for air, Roman rests his heavy forehead against hers. He knows this is a catastrophic mistake. She agrees. Neither of them has the emotional tools to survive this kind of love. Yet, she wants to jump anyway. Heals. Isabella stares into those cold gray eyes that have haunted her mind for months. Yes, she whispers to him in the shadows. She is ready to fall. Heals. Let us watch the framing of this next scene. You and I know how these tragic stories unfold. A single kiss does not rewrite a deeply scarred man, and Isabella is not stepping into the light. Heals. Broken minds do not heal just because they touch something warm, but a subtle shift happens in the script. Roman keeps his chaotic hours, running his dark empire and suffering through paralyzing, depressive episodes in the dead of night. Yet, heals. The blocking changes. When he comes home, he searches for her. Whether she is bathed in library moonlight or sitting in the kitchen, the hardened mob boss needs her there. He sits quietly, using her breath to steady his own shattered soul. Heals. The bitter tension in the room melts into a heavy codependency. They are no longer strangers occupying the same wide shots, but two lost souls sharing the frame. The white roses keep appearing, and Isabella stops pretending she does not know why. Heals. A week after that desperate kiss, she finds Roman in the kitchen before dawn. The lighting is harsh. He wears yesterday's clothes, shadows bruising the skin under his eyes. She steps closer, asking softly about his night. His rigid jaw finally relaxes. Heals. He whispers that it was brutal. She offers to talk, which he waves off. But when she simply stands near him, he pours a second cup of coffee, a silent surrender. Heals. They sip their coffee in the quiet dark. Isabella is learning to read his silent language, catching the heavy slump of his shoulders and the tension in his eyes. Today, his body screams of deep anxiety. Men like him rarely show raw fear. Heals. But his dread ties a cold knot in her stomach. She demands the truth. He tries to brush it off, a desperate attempt to keep control of the scene. She pushes back hard, his mask cracks. Roman confesses that shadows are circling them. Heals. Digging into her past and their sudden marriage, her blood runs cold. The violent outside world is crashing into their quiet sanctuary. Heals. Roman's face twists with genuine terror. He begs her to keep her guard up. Isabella gently reminds him that she is locked away in this massive estate for 2 long months. Roman shakes his head. He means she must watch who she trusts. Heals. Who she speaks to in the hallways. Tell him everything, he orders. She whispers that he is scaring her. He nods grimly, calling that a good thing. His trembling hand reaches out, finding hers in the dim light, a desperate need for a physical anchor. Heals. He admits he cannot handle the thought of her in danger, a fatal weakness for a kingpin. Isabella laces her fingers with his, sealing their tragic fate, promising to stay. He whispers she might not have a choice. Heals. She asks what he means, but Roman pulls away into the shadows, telling her to be careful before vanishing. A crushing dread settles over her. Hours bleed by. Elena finds her staring blindly out the glass, lost in the city lights 40 floors below. Heals. Elena asks where her head is at. Isabella laughs weakly. Elena keeps her face blank, pointing out how terrified Roman is of losing her. Isabella waves it off as his usual paranoia. Dropping her voice to a whisper, Elena shatters that illusion. Heals. In 6 long years, she has never seen him act like this. Not even for Caroline. Isabella freezes. Caroline was his anchor, but made of glass. Heals. Roman kept Caroline hidden in a safe, pristine bubble, completely blind to his dark reality. But with Isabella, the script is flipped entirely. Elena points out the tragic irony. He is dragging Isabella into the fire, warning her, craving her, heals, and pushing her away all at once. It is a slow, agonizing train wreck. Elena delivers the final, crushing blow. Someday soon, Roman will have to choose between his empire and the woman he loves, heals, and his broken mind will tear itself apart trying to decide. That heavy truth haunts Isabella all day. When night falls, Roman stumbles through the door. His hands are painted in fresh blood, heals, his eyes so hollow and dead that her desperate questions die in her throat, heals. He fades into the dark bathroom without a sound. Isabella waits in agony for 2 hours before pushing the door open. The harsh light reveals his trembling hands, scrubbing violently at the blood on his skin. His ruined shirt sits on the floor. Terrible, heals. Dark bruises paint his ribs like storm clouds. A sharp gasp escapes her lips. She steps forward to help. Roman looks up completely stunned, whispering that she should run from this dark world. She knows he is right, but her heart refuses to listen. Heals. Taking the warm cloth, she gently washes the violence from his skin, fighting back her own tears to touch his broken body. Heals. The cuts are shallow but angry, making him flinch under her gentle hands. She whispers a soft apology. Roman brushes off the pain. When she begs to know what happened, he tries to build his walls back up. But staring into her eyes, he finally breaks. Heals. A rival crew put his man in the hospital to send a message. Roman answered with pure, unhinged violence. He mutters that he had to protect what is his. In a healthy world, this dark obsession would send her running. Instead, heals, it pulls her deeper into his tragic gravity. As she wipes his chest, he draws a sharp breath, and she jerks her hands back. Heals. Let us hold the frame right here and watch this moment play out. She whispers another apology, but he swears her warm hands are the only thing keeping him grounded. Their eyes meet in the mirror. The air turns heavy, electric, and dangerous. Heals. He growls her name, a desperate warning for her to run away while she still can. When she softly asks why, his voice breaks. He tells her his control is completely gone. Her heart hammers against her chest. Any sane person would flee. Heals. But she is too far gone for safety now. She stares into the fire and asks what happens if she stays. His last defense crumbles. He pulls her in with a violent, desperate hunger, and she crashes right back into him. Heals. This is not a scene of tender romance. It is beautifully ruined, fueled by shattered souls and the bitter taste of surviving the dark. He backs her against the cold tile wall, and Isabella actively anchors him there, gripping his hair. Heals. She can feel his racing pulse, the terrifying caged violence he uses just to survive another day. When they break apart to breathe, Roman rests his heavy forehead against hers. He whispers that they are going to destroy each other. She knows. Heals. He begs her to see the truth. She simply does not care anymore. Roman searches her face, his intense gaze physically aching her heart. Then comes his final heartbreaking confession. He is a monster, and ruining things is all he knows. Heals. Watch how she fights for him in this frame. Isabella steps forward, begging him to see that his fear of hurting her proves he never will. Roman lets out a broken laugh. He backs into the shadows, pulling his armor back on. Heals, claiming she could never understand this wretched life. When Isabella cries out that she is sick of being treated like fragile glasses, Roman shatters. His voice cracks. He swears his lies are the only armor keeping the wolves away. Heals. He truly believes keeping her in the dark is the only way to keep her breathing. Heals. Roman paces like a trapped animal, confessing that he is the poison. He paints a tragic picture of his past love, Caroline, breaking apart under the crushing weight of his dark life, while he stood powerless to save her. Heals. Notice how Isabella's anger melts instantly into deep, tragic empathy. She looks at this bleeding man and refuses to be a victim. She tells him she is not Caroline. She demands the right to choose her own ruin. Roman locks onto her eyes. Heals. Haunted by ghosts, terrified she will shatter too. Isabella looks back, cold and resolute. She will gladly burn in his fire as long as she gets to strike the match. Heals. Roman closed the space in seconds. He held her face, pressing a slow, grounding kiss to her lips as if memorizing her. He finally confessed it out loud. He cared for her, and the terror of it paralyzed him. Isabella didn't run. She met his fear. Heals. admitting she had completely surrendered. That night shifted everything. They shared a bed for the very first time. Morning came with harsh sunlight and his scent heavy on the sheets. Panic gripped her chest for a split second, Eels, until the quiet memory of the night before finally settled into her mind. Eels. The pieces fell into place. The quiet bathroom, the soft touch, him carrying her to his room because neither could bear the dark alone. They did not sleep together. He just held her close, a desperate grip, Eels, while years of buried pain poured out of him until exhaustion took over. He painted a picture of a childhood built on blood, explaining why he had to overthrow a father who let weakness rule. He handed her the crushing weight of his grief, Eels. Isabella just listened. No judgment, no harsh questions. Just near sunrise, he whispered how broken he was. She answered only by holding him tighter. Now, reaching across the mattress, she found his side completely cold. Eels. Picture this for a second. He left a note telling her the room was hers. A genuine smile broke across Isabella's face as she pulled on his oversized shirt and wandered back to her wing. Down in the kitchen, Elena caught her with a knowing look. Eels. Isabella played it off, getting a little defensive. But Elena was just relieved. She saw Roman drowning, begging for a lifeline. Isabella joked that what he really needed was a therapist. For a moment, the laughter felt entirely normal. Eels, like a real family. But that fragile illusion shattered the exact second Roman walked through the door at sundown, carrying the cold air of death with him. Eels. No hello, just pure panic radiating from him, making Isabella's heart hammer against her ribs. The ghost was awake. His father wanted to meet her. Every muscle in Roman's body was wound tight. He paced, Eels, explaining the old man lived hidden upstate but still watched their every move. Isabella tried to think of a rational way out, not grasping the pure evil at play. Roman poured a heavy drink, Eels. He described a tyrant who built their empire on absolute cruelty, a darkness Roman fought every day to keep buried inside himself. Then came the bottom line. If his father saw her as a weak link, she was a dead woman. Eels. The deadpan way he said it made her blood run cold. Eels. Look at how the power shifts in this room. Roman's terror was raw and real. He described a monster obsessed with control and image, a man who didn't play by human rules. If he saw Isabella as a flaw in Roman's armor, he would cut her out. Permanently. Eels. When she asked how bad it could get, Roman told her to build a brick wall around her soul. The old man would hunt for cracks in her mind. Her knees gave out, dropping her into a chair. The dinner was tomorrow. Monsters never asked to come over. Eels. They just arrive. Roman sank to his knees, locking eyes with her, desperate to make her understand the gravity. Eels. He begged her to vanish completely. Hide the real Isabella, put on the ice-cold mask of a Mafia wife, and feel nothing. He snapped his own feelings shut, demanding she do the same. Every instinct in her body screamed to run away from this suicide mission. Eels. But seeing the sheer, suffocating fear in his eyes silenced her own. It was the tragic pull of their bond. She quietly promised to play the part. He gripped her hand tight, anchoring the lie. Sleep never came that night. She lay in the dark, Eels, dreading the moment the wolf would walk through the door, knowing one wrong twitch of her mouth could get her killed. Eels. 2 a.m. hit, and the silence drove her into the library. Roman was waiting in the shadows, every nerve wired tight. Just the thought of his father in the house made sleep impossible. They sat in heavy, grounding silence for a long time. Eels. When she finally asked what to expect, the pain flashed plain across his face. He said his father was exactly what he would have become without Caroline. A man with a hollow chest, seeing people only as tools or targets. Eels. He raised Roman to believe that loving someone was a death sentence. And Roman admitted he bought into that poison for years, right up until Caroline broke the mold and gave him a soul. Eels. Caroline showed him that you could be tough without being dead inside. But when she died, his father twisted the knife. He used the grief as a weapon, telling Roman that his soft heart was the reason she was in the ground. Isabella felt her breath catch, Eels, sickened by how purely evil that was. Roman held her gaze. He laid out the battlefield. The old man would push her mind to the absolute breaking point, digging for weakness to see if she was fit for this underworld. Eels. Roman's life was tied to her performance. Trying to lighten the crushing weight, she joked that she had already survived Roman's temper. He just gave her a sad, broken look. Eels. He whispered that she barely made it. She tried another joke to cut the tension, but he was entirely locked in his fear. He pulled her close, wrapping her in the dark while they waited for the storm to hit. Eels. The next 12 hours were a brutal crash course in survival. Elena dressed her in dark, rigid clothing, erasing any trace of the innocent girl she used to be. They taught her to stand with the cold arrogance of old money. Isabella practiced her walk, heels, her breathing, the precise freezing of her facial muscles. She was building a fortress out of her own flesh. This wasn't getting ready for a dinner party. This was putting on armor for a war. Heels. Roman couldn't sit still, pacing the floor and checking the doors like a caged animal. Right at 6, the heavy silence broke. The devil was here. Isabella's hands shook uncontrollably as she stepped into the main hall. Now, heels, you and I are going to see exactly where Roman gets his shadow. Vincent Sr. looked pristine, wearing his 60s with terrifying authority. He had Roman's jawline, but his eyes were empty pits, cold and dead like a snake's. Heels. Roman's voice was tight and flat during the introduction. The old man turned slowly, his eyes dragging over Isabella. He didn't see a girl. He saw a poker chip, weighing her value in blood and money right there on the spot. Heels. His voice was smooth and lethal. He ordered her to step closer. Fighting every urge to run for her life, Isabella held his stare and offered her hand. He let it hang in the air, total silence. It was a classic power move, heels, taking his time to pick apart her face for any sign of weakness. He mocked her youth, treating her like a lost child, and demanded to know where she came from. Isabella delivered the fake backstory perfectly, not missing a beat. Heels. The old man gave a chilling smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he dug into her roots, forcing her to admit her parents were just ordinary people working normal jobs. Heels. The mind games were brutal. He finally took her hand, squeezing too hard, and asked if her ordinary parents approved of the Mafia. Isabella saw the trap. She kept her voice completely dead, giving a vague answer about family trust. Heels. He threw her hand back and turned to Roman, laughing that she was well-trained, comparing her to a loyal dog. A muscle feathered in Roman's jaw as he reminded his father she was a person. The old man just waved it off. Heels. What followed was the longest dinner of her life. It was sheer torture. Vincent picked apart her schooling, her habits, and pushed hard on what she actually knew about their dark world, hunting for one wrong word. Heels. Watch this scene with me. Isabella holds her breath in the dim light, feeling Roman tremble like a taut wire beside her. You are very calm, Vincent Sr. murmurs. Most women would be terrified. Should I be? She asks. Most would think so. Heels. I am not most women. The old king's eyes go dark in the shadows. No, I suppose you are not. He cuts his meat slowly, the silver scraping china. Tell me, Isabella, what do you think of my boy's empire? The fatal trap opens. Heels. I think he built a tragic masterpiece that will survive. Built on what? On the sheer agony of making hard choices. Heels. And you accept his ruthless choices? I accept him. The father leans into the candlelight. You are either terribly brave or entirely foolish. Does it matter? Isabella locks onto his cold eyes. I am here. A chilling laugh echoes in the room. Heels. She has spirit, better than the last one. Roman's jaw clenches in sudden rage. Stop. Why? Caroline was fragile, crushed under our weight. This one might survive. I said stop. Roman growls, a raw ache in his voice. Leave Caroline out of this. Heels. Struck a nerve, the old man smirks, drinking his son's heartbreak. Heels. Good. It means you remember the tragedy of letting love blind your ambition. We focus on Isabella's trembling fingers gently touching Roman's arm, begging for peace. With respect, Mr. DeLuca. Her voice rings clear. His vision is perfectly sound. Heels. He took the kingdom you built and forged it into an empire. That requires more than just cruelty. It requires a soul. The old man's face hardens in the shadows. Are you preaching to me, girl? I am telling the truth. Her heart pounds a frantic rhythm. Heels. He chuckles softly, charmed by her tragic defiance. You have a spark. Perhaps you will not drown in our dark waters after all. Heels. The cruel game ends abruptly. Roman, my study now. Roman gives Isabella's hand one agonizing squeeze. A silent apology for the hell to come and follows his father into the dark. Left behind, Isabella breaks, her body shaking as terror sets in. Heels. Elena steps from the shadows. You held your own. I felt like dying, but you survived. Isabella's eyes remain locked on the heavy oak doors. What is he doing to him? Nothing good. Elena gathers the crystal glasses, her face a tragic mask. Heels. The devil does not visit simply to share a meal. He came for blood. Whose? Elena just bows her head in silence. Heels. 20 agonizing minutes pass before shouts bleed through the walls. Drawn like a moth to a flame, Isabella creeps down the hall. This is not your call, Roman roars, fighting for his soul. I decide everything, the Titan booms. I built this kingdom. Heels. You merely sit on the throne. I turned your mob into a dynasty. Do not call me weak. I married her exactly as you demanded. The father's voice drops to a deadly whisper, finding the fatal flaw. I told you to find someone who could survive our sins. Feels. Not a fragile girl you were actually falling for. A suffocating silence drops. Get out. Feels. Excuse me? You heard me. Leave my house. The father reclaims his crown with absolute cruelty. This is not your home. It belongs to me. Every piece of you is mine. Then take it. Roman's voice turns to ice. Take the penthouse. Take the family business. Feels. Burn it down, but you will never dictate who I love. The heavy oak doors swing wide. Vincent Sr. steps into the light, his face a stone mask. Catching Abella shivering in the hall, he twists the final knife. Cherish this romance while you can. Feels. Little bird. Monsters like my boy never stay gentle. He will remember the blood in his veins. And when he does, you will either adapt or he will shatter you to pieces. Feels. Roman stumbles into the frame, a broken king. The moment he sees Isabella, his "I am so sorry," he whispers. For what? For my father, for dragging you into my hell. Isabella reaches out, feels. Clinging to the man who derailed her quiet life, she pulls him into a desperate embrace. Roman buries his face in her shoulder, defeated by love. You fought him, she breathes. For me, always for you, he will make you bleed for this. Let him, feels. But as she holds him, she feels the violent tremor in his chest, the pure terror beneath his bravado. They have awakened the devil, and the coming storm will be merciless. Feels. A heavy dread hangs in the air. We watch Isabella pacing the lonely penthouse. When Roman finally returns, the shadows under his eyes scream of total ruin. We need to talk, he breathes. What is happening? My father is moving against me. Feels. He is gathering the crime families, whispering that love has made me soft, that this marriage is a weakness. Can he do that? If they listen, yes. He will strip me of the throne. The entire empire? Every piece of it. Roman looks at her, feels. A tragic king watching his castle burn. He is painting you as my downfall, telling them I chose my heart over blood, that I am too weak to wear the crown. Feels. Look at this tragic paradox with me. Where does that leave us? Isabella's voice breaks. It means the hour has come, Roman confesses, the light dying in his eyes. The crown or you. The heartbreak is almost too heavy to bear. If I keep the throne, feels. I must exile you. I have to show the world you meant absolutely nothing to me, and if I choose you, then I am stripped of everything. My father takes control, and my people burn. Isabella sees the sheer brilliance of the old man's cruelty. Roman feels that is not a choice, it is an execution. I know. He begins pacing the shadows, a desperate caged wolf. Feels. And I am tearing apart inside. For the first time in my miserable life, I love someone more than the power, and it is killing me. Moved by the profound tragedy of their bond, Isabella steps to the altar. Look at me. I refuse to be the blade that ruins you. Feels. I will vanish. In the night. We will tell the world I was too fragile for this dark life. Never. Roman grabs her, his desperate need to protect blinding him to his own demise. I said never. I will not surrender you. Not to him. Not to anyone. Feels. Then how do we survive this? He crushes her against his chest, two doomed souls drowning in a beautiful, fatal devotion. Feels. I do not know, but we will fight this war together. As Isabella listens to his racing heartbeat, the tragic reality sets in. Blood will be spilled, and she knows, deep down, it must be hers. Feels. The next 7 days play out like a slow walk to the guillotine. The camera tracks Roman spiraling into chaos. Isabella watches from the shadows as he paces until dawn, barking threats into the phone, bleeding for loyalty from rival syndicates. Feels. The crushing weight of the underworld is stripping him to the bone, breaking the prince down, one sleepless, frantic night at a time. Feels. The man she loves is burying himself behind a wall of cold survival. I have to fly to Chicago, Roman murmurs, his face hollow, eyes bruised by exhaustion. 3 days, maybe 4. There is a council with the Western factions. If I win their loyalty, feels, the old man cannot strike. All right, Vincent stays guarding you. I am doubling the armed men downstairs. Roman, I will be safe. You cannot promise that. My father is backed into a corner, and cornered monsters do unspeakable things. Feels. In a heartbreaking display of tenderness, Isabella reaches up, smoothing the lapels of his suit, desperately trying to tether his soul to the light. Feels. Then go, win this war. Roman grabs her face, desperate to memorize her warmth, his eyes begging her to stay alive. Swear to me you will be careful. If a single shadow shifts out of place, you call me. He presses a desperate bruising kiss to her lips. Feels. Terrified it might be their last. I will fix us, I swear to God I will. Isabella smiles, feigning absolute faith, but inside she feels the icy grip of death closing in. The moment he leaves, the penthouse turns into a mausoleum. For 2 agonizing days, feels the silence is deafening, a suffocating calm before the ultimate tragic storm breaks. Feels. Isabella tries to outrun the terror, lying to her family on the phone, painting a picture of perfect safety. Elena haunts the security monitors, eyes glued to the screens like a sentinel waiting for the devil. But on the third morning, the fortress falls. Feels. A single crisp envelope rests on the marble counter. We focus on Isabella's trembling fingers. The handwriting is elegant, old-world and dipped in venom. The old king has bypassed every guard. My dear Isabella, the letter begins. Feels, his phantom voice echoing in the hollow room. My boy stands at a cliff. He can cling to his tragic romance and plunge us all into absolute ruin. Feels, you and I are watching the masterstroke of a villain. The old king lays his poisoned chalice on the table. Disappear into the night. Walk away and your family will never want for anything. It is the devil's bargain, shot in close-up. Feels. Your mother's hospital debts erased. Your brother's future bought and paid for. The price? Only her heart. She must vanish before Roman burns his empire to the ground for her. You have 24 hours. After that, the grace period ends. Feels. And I will wash the blood from my own hands. Choose wisely. Isabella reads the words until they blur. Her stomach violently twists. The snare has closed. She is entirely, beautifully doomed. Feels. A flawless piece of extortion. A bribe wrapped in the sheer heartbreak of it all. The old devil is right. Roman is setting himself on fire just to keep her warm. The guilt crushes her ribs. Shaking, weeping, she dials his number. Feels. The phone doesn't even ring twice. Isabella, what is wrong? Your father, he got a letter inside. A terrifying, breathless silence stretches across the line. What did he say? Tears stream down her face as she reads the old man's venom aloud. Feels. The shift in Roman is instant. The lover vanishes. The merciless mob boss awakes. Do not move. Do not say a word. I am coming home. Roman, no, the council. I am coming home. Feels. If you leave now, you lose everything, she warned, voice trembling. I don't care, Roman shot back. But she cared. The walls were closing in on her. I care, Roman, because I refuse to be the reason you throw away your entire life. Isabella, look at me. No. Feels, you listen to me. The poison from dinner had fully set in. Your father is completely right. I am a weakness. As long as I stay in this house, he holds a knife to your throat. Roman froze. What are you saying? Love makes people do destructive things. Feels. I'm saying maybe I should walk away. The silence that followed was suffocating. You cannot be serious, he whispered. It's your empire, or it's me. There is no other way. Feels. Let's step into this scene together. I can't let you choose me and watch everything burn, Isabella whispers. Roman's voice hardens. That is not your decision. Yes, it is. Because I love you too much to let you ruin yourself. Feels. The tragic words hang heavy in the room. On the other end, Roman's breath physically catches. Isabella. Panicking, she cuts the line. We will talk later. The phone drops. She sits frozen in the cold light, clutching her chest. In her fractured mind, Feels saving him means erasing herself entirely. Feels. To her, breaking his heart was the only shield against his father's cruelty. An hour later, Elena finds her staring blankly. You are considering his offer, Elena says softly. Isabella looks up, completely stunned. Elena pulls up a chair. Feels. Reading the heavy tension. Are you going to do it? Isabella's voice trembles. I do not know. What would you do? Elena studies her, eyes full of tragic history. I would ask myself if leaving saves him, or just breaks him differently. Feels. Roman was shattered once before. When Caroline died, it nearly buried him. Feels. He built walls nobody could climb. Until you, Elena says gently. Leaving saves his empire, but kills the piece of him that just started healing. Isabella fights tears. And if I stay, his father destroys everything. Maybe, Elena answers. Feels. But Vincent is not stupid. If Roman fights, the old man might blink. Bullies fold when the price is too high. That is a massive gamble, Isabella whispers. Love usually is. Isabella looks up. You think I should stay? Do whatever lets you sleep. Feels. But you must talk to Roman. The stark truth hits Isabella like a physical blow. Feels. The mere thought of watching his face crumble paralyzed her. The phone buzzes on the table. Roman. She stares at the screen, letting in again. Pure desperation. On the fifth ring, Elena snatches it. Mr. DeLuca, she is safe. Yes. Feels. I am here. She just needs to think. Elena listens to his frantic voice through the speaker. I will tell her. And sir, come home, whatever you are doing. It is not worth losing her. Elena hangs up. He is on his way back tonight. Isabella's breath hitches. Feels. Terror flooding her eyes. I cannot see him. Not yet. Feels. I do not know what to say, Isabella whispers. Then figure it out, Elena replies, because he will not let you hide. Isabella's mind is a tangled mess of fear and tragic sacrifice. Blinded by panic, she makes a fatal move. Eels. She dials the architect of her nightmare, Vincent Sr. He answers instantly, tasting blood in the water. Miss Quinn, glad you called. I will take your offer. Isabella chokes out, the words tearing her throat. On one condition, Eels. You back off Roman entirely. No more threats. Let him run the business and stay out of his life. The old monster laughs. Eels. Negotiating now. How bold, he mocks. That is the deal. A heavy silence falls. Fine. Leave quietly, and Roman is safe. I want it in writing. And my family's money secured first. Done papers tomorrow. How soon can you vanish? Eels. Isabella clutches her chest, feeling her heart shatter. Give me 2 days, 48 hours. After that, you are gone. Understood? Yes. She ends the call, sealing her tragic fate. For the next hour, she moves like a ghost. She packs a single bag, Eels, taking only the bare essentials needed to wipe her existence from the home she grew to love. Eels. She writes vague farewell letters for her mother and Marcus, but trying to write to Roman makes her hands shake violently. She manages only 3 few words. I'm sorry. Elena finds her collapsed on the floor, gasping among the luggage. Oh, honey, Elena whispers. Eels, pulling her into a hug. What did you do? I made the deal. I leave in 2 days. Does Roman know? Not yet. Isabella chokes back a sob. He is going to lose his mind. I know, she cries, trembling. But it is the right thing. It has to be. Eels. Elena replies with grim pity. The right thing and the easy thing are rarely the same. Eels. Nothing about this is easy. Elena holds her as she weeps for the love she is about to butcher. Then Isabella buries the pain deep. At 10 p.m. the elevator chimes. Heavy footsteps echo through the penthouse. She waits in the dark library, heart hammering, Eels. But he finds her instantly. Isabella. His voice is completely wrecked. He looks hollowed out, exhausted, frantic, desperate. We need to talk. I know. Roman crosses the room, dropping to his knees right in front of her. He searches her eyes, Eels, silently begging for a lie. Tell me you did not call my father. Eels. Isabella looks away, dodging his intense gaze. I cannot tell you that. Roman shoots up, pacing like a caged animal. What did you agree to? I leave in 2 days. He pays my family. In exchange, he leaves you alone. Absolutely not. It is done, Roman. Eels. Then undo it. His voice cracks with pure panic. Call him, cancel it. I cannot. Why not? To protect you. Isabella stands, facing him head on. Your father is right. I make you weak. While I am here, he uses me against you. I am removing myself. Eels. Yes, it is. My life, my choice. Eels. Not when it destroys mine. Roman grips her shoulders, forcing her focus. You think I can just let you walk away, pretend you never mattered? You did it after Caroline. The words twist like a brutal knife. She regrets the strike instantly. Eels. Roman physically recoils, as if she truly hit him. That was different, he whispers. How? Because I had no choice. Caroline made her decision. I lived with it. But you, his composure shatters completely. You are choosing to leave, choosing to break us. Eels. I cannot survive that. Isabella's tears finally spill. I am doing this because I love you. Eels. Then stay, please, he begs. I will fight the whole damn world. Just do not leave. And when you lose everything, she cries. When the empire falls because you chose me, how long until you resent me? I would never. You cannot know that. Eels. People change when they lose what matters. I will not watch you become someone you hate. His hands drop from her shoulders, an utterly defeated man. So, it is decided. I am trying to do the right thing. The right thing is staying and fighting. Now, Eels, look at this with me. You and I have to wonder, does saving someone from ruin just guarantee their ultimate destruction? Eels. Let's block out this scene together. A beautiful, tragic romance bathed in cold light. They stood close yet miles apart. When do you leave? Roman asked, his voice completely hollow. Thursday morning, she whispered. Eels. He knew his deadline to shatter her walls. He pushed the crushing guilt onto her, then walked away. Isabella collapsed, weeping until she was empty. The next day was pure punishment. Roman canceled his meetings, brooding inside the penthouse. Eels. He shadowed her every step, a haunting presence designed to suffocate her completely. Eels. Picture the dining room. Heavy, bleeding silence. Later, Isabella caught him searching her open suitcase. You really meant it, he whispered, testing her. He twisted the knife. There's a difference. It was cruel, but he fed on it. I will not make this easy, he warned, forcing her to hold his gaze. I do. You love you too, she cried, completely broken. Then prove it and stay, he demanded.
I cannot, May sobbed.
Cannot or will not. Her resolve shattered entirely. Both. Feels. I cannot watch your father destroy you, she pleaded. Her fear disguised itself as a beautiful sacrifice. Loving you means keeping you alive even if it ruins me. Roman fired back instantly. What is best for me is you, right here. Feels. She desperately tried to reason with him. In what world? Your father is seizing everything. The cartel doubts you. We are trapped out, and my leaving is the only way out. He stepped dangerously close, weaponizing his tragic gaze. If you walk away, Feels, I will spend my life mourning that I could not save you from yourself. Feels. If I stay, you will resent losing your empire, she cried. I do not care about the cartel, he shot back. A beautiful lie. His voice dropped, admitting he loved the power but craved possessing her more. That confession tore her apart. Do not say that. Why? Feels. Because it makes leaving harder. His bitter laugh echoed. Good, it should hurt. He painted their cursed romance as destined to burn. I have no choice, she begged. You always have a choice, he countered, aiming at her guilt. It worked perfectly, Feels. She was paralyzed, terrified of watching him fall, but utterly terrified of leaving. Feels. She believed any choice would end in tragedy. I am scared, she whispered, but I would rather walk through hell with you than be safe alone. They held each other for hours, lost in that desperate embrace. That night, the darkness consumed her. She lay wide awake, counting the agonizing hours until her escape. She braced herself to rip her own heart out. At 2 in the morning, the door clicked open. Roman stood in the frame, backlit like a hunting wolf. Feels. He held her gaze, and you could see her resolve melting away. I cannot sleep either, he murmured, stepping inside. He sat on her bed, pulling her back to where it began. He whispered, you signed that dark contract, with shaking hands but steady ink. I am not that strong, she deflected. He leaned closer. You are the bravest soul I know. We can survive this war if you just yield. Isabella sat up, clutching her blanket like a fragile shield against his intoxicating pull. Feels. Watch how the camera pushes in here as he breaks her logic. What if we fail, she asked. He gave her pure romantic tragedy. At least we went down fighting. He shifted the blame onto his father. I am not him, he swore. Feels. Desperate to separate himself from the monster who raised him. He claimed total control over his criminal empire and his deep obsessions. Isabella took a shaky breath. You love me? The lighting catches the sorrow in his eyes. Feels. I have been obsessed with you for weeks, he confessed. He touched her cheek, deepening that tragic bond. I am done hiding, he promised. Feels. I am holding my ground, he swore, painting a future resting entirely in her hands. Tears finally spilled down her face. What if I am not strong enough? He stepped into the savior role, offering to carry her burdens. Feels. He kissed her, a desperate collision of shadows and heat. Isabella kissed him back, pouring her shattered grief into him. He pulled away slightly, resting his forehead against hers. Stay, he begged. She wanted to surrender to his dark fairy tale. Feels. But the looming cartel war screamed in her mind. I cannot, she whispered. I am so sorry. Feels. Roman pulled away, a single tear falling. I guess this is the end, he murmured. He walked to the door, pausing for dramatic effect. His final line, I would choose you for the empire, and I will keep choosing you, even when you leave. He vanished. Feels. Isabella curled on the floor, sobbing until her body simply gave out. Dawn broke without mercy. Down in the lobby, the villain, Vincent Sr., pushed the buyout across the table. Hush money. A cold contract promising her family's safety. Feels, provided she disappeared completely. Feels. She signed the papers like a ghost. Elena pushed her luggage into the elevator. The silence was deafening. Roman was nowhere to be seen, a punishing final scene. She tried to stay strong, but her heart craved one last look. Just as the steel doors closed, Feels, a blur of motion hit the frame. Roman forced his hands between the metal, ripping them open. Wait, he panted, his chest heaving. Her pulse skyrocketed. Please do not make this harder, she begged. I am not stopping you, he breathed. Feels, stepping into the cage as the doors locked. I just need one final word. Feels. The elevator dropped, 40 floors, 2 minutes until she was gone forever. I love you, the Mafia prince confessed, his voice steady as tears fell. He pushed the stakes to the extreme, placing her above his cartel and his life. If you walk away now, Feels, I will spend every breath hunting you. Roman, please, she cried. I am not finished, he interrupted, gently taking her face in his hands. You think leaving keeps me safe, but you are wrong. The only thing that destroys me is a world without you. Run, Feels. Take the money, but know my hunt for you will never end. Feels. So what do you and I make of this breaking point? The elevator hit the lobby. The doors slid open. Isabella locked onto his eyes, swept into the illusion of their dark destiny. It was pure madness masquerading as epic romance. Her devotion was absolute. Feels. She dropped her luggage. I am not leaving, she breathed. His face shifted from shattered grief to dark triumph. What? He whispered. I am staying. Your father can rot. The cartel can burn to the ground. I do not care about surviving anymore. Feels. He slammed her against the wall, kissing her like a drowning man. She kissed him back, pouring all her twisted loyalty into his soul. Feels. Pulling back just to breathe, he needed one last confirmation. Are you certain? No, but I am staying. She swore. My father will lose his mind. Let him, Roman scoffed. He let out a breathless laugh, pulling her into his chest. I love you. I love you too. Feels, she echoed. They lingered in that steel cage, holding each other like the world was ending. Then he hit the button to go up. We are starting a blood war against my father, he warned. I know. It will be a massacre. I know. You can still run. Feels. She looked at this beautiful, lethal monster who rewrote her soul and smiled never. Feels. The doors sealed, rocketing them back to the Empire, back to the danger, back to mutual destruction. But in their twisted romance, it felt like victory. Vincent Sr. waited in the penthouse. He sat on the throne, swirling his whiskey. Feels. Completely unfazed to see her walk back in. He did not blink. I knew this would happen, the old man murmured, setting his glass down. Roman has a true gift for breaking people. I did not force her. Roman shot back, gripping her hand tight. Feels. She made her own choice. A spectacularly foolish one, the old man coldly replied. Feels. Let's open this scene together. The camera pans to the patriarch, Vincent Sr., standing with the sheer ego of a fallen king. But I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Young love makes people do foolish things. This isn't about love, Roman snapped. Feels. This is about you not controlling my life anymore. Notice how the older man's jaw sets in stone. Everything I've done has been to protect this family, to protect you from making the exact same mistakes I did. What mistakes? Building an empire? Feels. Or destroying every single person you love to keep it. Watch your tone, boy. I'm not a boy. I'm 34 years old. I've been running this operation for 6 years without your shadow hanging over me. I am done pretending I need your blessing. Feels. Vincent Sr.'s eyes narrowed. A father's ultimate pride. Wounded. Feels. You think you can stand against me? I know I can. Then you're more arrogant than I thought. The father steps into the light, his rage practically vibrating. Let me explain something, Roman. This empire exists because I bled for it. Every alliance, Feels. Every dollar, it is mine, and I can take it all back. Try it, Roman said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Call the families. See how many of them follow a man who vanished 6 years ago, hiding upstate because the crown got too heavy. Feels. The old king's face darkened, his god complex cracking right before our eyes. You do not know what you are talking about. Feels. Don't I? You walked away because the blood and the paranoia finally broke you, just like it almost broke me. But the difference is, I found a reason to stay human. Watch Roman's hand as he pulls Isabella to his side, shielding her. You never did. Feels. You just became the monster the throne demanded. For a heavy, suffocating second, the father just stared at his flesh and blood. Then came the laugh, a hollow, lifeless sound. You think she is going to save you? Make you a better man? Feels. I thought the exact same thing about your mother. Look how that ended. Isabella felt the muscles in Roman's back turn to steel. Do not bring her into this. Why not? It is the same tragic story. Feels. Your mother was a soft, kind woman. She could not survive the man I had to become. So she ran, took you away, until I made her see you needed to be with me. Needed to learn how to be a king, not a victim. She did not leave because she was weak, Roman said. Feels. A raw tremor finally breaking his voice. She left because you were poison, and then you poisoned me against her, taught me that love was a fatal flaw. It is. Loving someone puts a bullet in your head. No, being entirely alone is what kills you. Feels. Without a heart, you have nothing left to protect, no reason to breathe. Roman tightened his grip on Isabella's hand, holding on for dear life. She is not making me weak. Feels. She is making me remember why any of this even matters. The father studies them like a director framing a tragedy. His face is completely blank. You actually believe that? I know it. Then you are already dead. Feels. Vincent Sr. swallowed the rest of his whiskey, letting the burn numb him. I gave you an out. Send the girl away. Keep your crown. But you chose romance over power. So I will fix my mistake. I am calling the families together for a formal vote. Feels. When I expose how broken you are, I will take back my throne. When is the sit-down? Roman asked, his tone dropping. 3 days. Neutral ground. The Belmore estate. Feels. Every major player will be in that room. Vincent Sr. turned toward the elevator. Bring your little wife if you want. Let the wolves see the exact weakness that ruined you. It will make my job much easier. Heels. He stepped into the dark metal box and vanished. The second the doors shut, Roman dragged Isabella into his chest, shaking with the pure adrenaline of patricide. We just declared war on your own flesh and blood, Isabella whispered. I know, Heels. He will burn you to the ground. I know. Are you sure? I could still run. Roman pulled back, his eyes burning with absolute desperation. Do not even think about running. This is our tragedy now. Isabella nodded. Heels. Fighting the sheer terror threatening to drown her. Heels. What do we do now? We get ready. And pray 6 years of loyalty holds up against my father's shadow. You and I can see the beautiful tragedy forming right here on screen. Over the next 3 sleepless, agonizing days, Roman starved himself. Heels. Working the phones, trying to hold his fragile alliances together. Isabella watched him slip back into that cold, ruthless king she first met. But the armor was cracking. The terrifying fear of losing her bled through his ruthless mask. Heels. In a heartbreaking dance of survival, she became everything his dark world demanded. She worked the angles, smiled like a seasoned mob wife, and transformed her very soul to be the shield Roman desperately needed. Heels. Elena was the quiet anchor in the background, keeping the house running so Isabella wouldn't entirely shatter under the crushing weight of the ticking clock. You are stronger than you look, Elena murmured. I feel like I am breaking. We all are. Heels. But you are still standing. That is the only thing that matters. The night before the climax, Roman found her haunting the dim library. She was lost in her own mind, staring at a single page for 20 minutes. Cannot sleep, he asked softly. Heels. He sat down, gently pulling the book away. I need to tell you something. Isabella's heart dropped into her stomach. Heels. What is it? Tomorrow, in that room, it could turn into a bloodbath. The old man might have bought more loyalty than I realized. Knives could come out. And if they do, his jaw clenched tight enough to break bone. If they do, promise me one thing. Roman. Heels. Promise me that if the walls fall, you run. Take Vincent, disappear. Take the hidden cash and start a new life. Do not look back at the ashes. I will never leave you. Isabella, please. I already tried running, remember? Heels. I stood at the elevator and my legs failed me. Why would tomorrow be any different? Because tomorrow my life is on the line. Heels. If he wins, he will not just take the crown. He will burn the garden to clear the weeds. And you are a threat. Isabella's chest seized, panic flooding her veins. You think he would murder me? Heels. He will do whatever it takes to erase the weakness that ruined his boy. You are the proof. In a normal store story, the girl runs. But we are watching a tragedy unfold, and her fear turns into burning defiance. Then we make sure he loses. It is not that simple. Heels. It is. You walk into that room and show them the king they chose. You have something that Monster never had. What is that? Loyalty born from respect, not from sheer terror. Heels. People who actually believe in your vision. Notice how Isabella tangles her fingers with his 2 souls locked together. And you have me standing right beside you, proving to those men that love is not a weakness. It is a reason to fight for tomorrow. Heels. Roman pulled her close, burying his face in her hair to memorize her scent. When did you get so fearless? When I fell for a king who just needed someone to believe in him. They held on to each other, doomed lovers bracing for the storm. Heels. The Belmore estate was 3 hours north. Vincent drove through the bleak, silent countryside. Isabella held Roman's hand tight, staring out the glass. You do not have to go inside, Roman whispered. Heels. You could wait in the car. Please, just stay safe. We have been over this. I am walking through those doors. Isabella, no. You need me in that room. We have to show them a united front. We have to prove that our bond is not a liability. Heels. She squeezed his hand, sealing her beautiful, irrational devotion. I will not cower in the dark while you fight for our lives. Roman just looked at her, his eyes shining with a chaotic mix of deep pride and gut-wrenching terror. You know I love you, right? Heels. I know. And if I do not walk out of there, you are walking out. But if I fall, just know these last few months gave me my soul back. You reminded me how to be a human being. Isabella's eyes welled with heavy tears. Heels. Stop speaking like this is our final goodbye. I just need to say it. I know, and I love you too. But we are walking out of that house alive. Together, so save the tragic poetry for tonight. For the first time, a genuine, Heels, heartbreaking smile broke through Roman's dark features. Yes, ma'am. The Belmore estate looked like a gothic nightmare dripping in old blood money. A ruthless arena where empires were slaughtered over glasses of vintage wine. Feels. Black luxury cars crowded the gravel. The wolves had arrived. Roman took one long, ragged breath, letting his humanity fade away. He slipped back into the skin of the icy, untouchable mob boss, completely lethal. But before opening his door, he looked at Isabella one last time. Whatever happens inside, do not let them see a single ounce of fear. I will not. And stay right by my side, always. Hand in hand, they walked straight into the lion's den. Let's step inside and watch how this beautiful, brutal tragedy ends. The dim boardroom felt suffocating. 20 dangerous men sat around a massive table, judging the young king and his bride. Isabella felt their hostile, unblinking eyes cutting through her. Vincent Sr. sat at the head of the table like an emperor who already won. Roman walked to the opposite end, keeping his queen anchored to his side. He refused to sit. He just stood tall, locking eyes with every single man until the silence became deafening. Gentlemen, Roman echoed, I hear my father wants my throne. Picture this scene with me. Vincent Sr. stands in the dimly lit boardroom, breathing in the scent of fear. He tells the men he surrendered his crime syndicate 6 years ago, merely to test his son's absolute ruthlessness. But Roman cuts through the heavy cigar smoke. The Mafia empire is thriving. Profits are surging. The streets are perfectly quiet. Yet the aging father waves away the bloody ledger. To a king slowly losing his crown, money means nothing. Absolute power is all that matters. His cold eyes sweep across the silent room. The old man demands pure terror, spitting on love as a fatal disease. The father strikes like a viper. He points a wrinkled finger at Isabella, dismissing her as a tragic flaw in his son's armor. To him, an open heart is a bleeding wound. Roman defends his bride, swearing she is the perfect mask of legitimacy for the business. The father laughs, a hollow scream. He ordered his boy to buy a prop, not fall in love. Romance is just rot in the foundation. The cartel lieutenants shift in the shadows, their eyes locked on the captive girl. Roman's voice echoes off the marble, swearing his devotion has not dulled his blade. The aging father begins to pace, laying out a devastating Greek tragedy. He forces his son to choose, the blood-soaked throne or the woman breathing softly beside him. It is a fatal trap. Choose the crown, lose his soul. Choose the girl, lose his life. Roman refuses the knife. He claims them both. He roars that a true king can rule without slaughtering his own humanity. Roman pulls her closer, claiming her as his fortress. The father sneers at the poetry, turning to the wolves who could possibly follow. Oh, boss, crippled by love. The silence is thick by love. The silence is thick, suffocating. Suddenly, a scarred lieutenant steps into the light. He chooses the son. His logic cuts deep. A man fighting to protect the woman he loves will burn the world down faster than a king with an empty heart. Another shadow shifts, pledging loyalty to this new, desperate alpha. The soldier reminds them the rivers of cash are flowing perfectly. Why break what works? The old man erupts, his face purple, screaming that true power demands stripping the soul bare. Roman catches the lie before it hits the floor. He asks if that devotion is why his father hid away in the mountains. The emperor's mask cracks. Roman twists the knife, exposing the truth. The darkness drove his father mad, shattering him just like it destroyed his mother. But Roman swears his love keeps him from drowning in that exact same abyss. Notice the shift in the room's gravity. Roman vows this woman is his true north. Every drop of blood spilled is to protect whatever fragile piece of his soul remains. He turns the mirror on his father. The old man went crazy because he had no one to hold in the dark. The lieutenants hold their breath. The fading boss stares. For a fleeting second, a shadow of tragic understanding crosses his weathered face. He whispers his doubt, then turns his terrifying gaze to Isabella. Does she truly love her monster? Her chest rises. She says yes. He pushes her deeper into the flames. Will she bleed for him? He warns her this criminal underworld will chew her up and spit out her bones. Isabella does not blink. Not a single muscle in her delicate face trembles. She swears she will walk through hell by his side. The aging tyrant studies the fire in her eyes. Slowly, the corner of his mouth twitches. Not with warmth, but the cold respect one predator gives another. He turns back to his wolves, admitting he thought his boy was soft. But now he sees a terrifying, unyielding obsession. He murmurs that this tragic romance might just be the armor he never had. Isabella's breath catches in her throat. But a dictator never just walks away. He demands a deadly wager. Roman keeps his throne, but the old man sets a snare in the shadows. Heals. If this girl causes a single mistake, the empire falls on them both. Roman asks who pulls the trigger. The father Sue smiles, leaving their fate to the restless council. It is a powder keg waiting for a spark, but it beats a bloodbath tonight. Heals. Isabella slightly bows her head. Roman takes the heavy truce. Heals. The old king extends a cold, heavy hand. It is a lifeless pact, completely stripped of a father's love. The men melt back into the shadows, some bowing to the new boss, others terrified to look him in the eye. Isabella plays the Iron Queen perfectly. Heals. But the second the heavy oak doors close, they collapse against the wall. Roman pulls her into a desperate, gripping embrace. He whispers they won, but her eyes are wide with the tragic truth. The monster just delayed the execution. Roman softly agrees. Heals. This gives them time to build a fortress. Heals. He accepts the ticking clock, focused only on keeping her breathing. They retreat to the cold velvet of their penthouse, the sheer adrenaline draining from their trembling hands. They pour heavy glasses of whiskey. Heals. Desperate to quiet the roaring in their ears, she curls against his chest, searching for the only warmth left in this frozen world. What now? She whispers into his shirt. Roman plots a beautiful illusion of normal life to blind the council. Heals. They know his father is watching, begging for them to break. Isabella offers a tragic, bitter laugh against the overwhelming dark. Heals. Look closely at the frame with me. Two shattered souls desperately stitching their broken pieces together. As the seasons change, a beautiful tragedy unfolds. Roman still rules the underworld with an iron fist, but the deadness in his eyes is gone. Heals. He wakes up to the morning light, pouring coffee, dreaming of tomorrow instead of just surviving today. They play the roles of a perfect couple, locking the monsters outside. Isabella learns to paint the walls of her beautiful cage. Heals. She dives into his front businesses, washing away the blood by building quiet, beautiful homes for families. Heals. It is a beautiful contradiction, cleaning Mafia sins by planting gardens and fixing roofs. It gives her a voice in the dark, a spark of hope. When Marcus steps into their quiet sanctuary, his hand slowly drops from his gun. He watches her laugh. Heals. He quietly confesses he never thought a bird could sing so sweetly in a cage. Isabella smiles with genuine warmth, completely consumed by the romance of her tragic captivity. Breaking the news to her mother takes weeks of screaming matches. Heals. Over a tense, glass-shattering dinner, the mother points a knife at Roman, swearing to bury him if her daughter sheds a single tear. Heals. Roman doesn't blink, swearing his life belongs to the girl with such haunting sincerity that the mother lowers her blade. Far away, the exiled father watches through binoculars. He sends phantoms to shake the gates. Heals. Praying to see a crack in his son's armor. But Roman plays the perfect king, drowning the streets in gold. The old man is forced to watch his son's masterpiece. 6 months into this tense poetry, Roman breaks the script. Heals. He steps out of the shadows early, finding Isabella bathed in golden library light. Her heart drops, expecting assassins, but his eyes are soft, purely driven by love. Heals. You and I are watching the climax of a romance born in blood. Isabella spots his quiet tension and offers a soft smile. Roman reaches out, his rough hands presenting a small velvet box. She expects diamonds to chain her down. Heals. But she finds a simple brass key. He bought a house right in her old neighborhood. He looks at the lavish penthouse and calls it what it is, a gilded prison. He offers her a slice of a quiet, perfect world. Heals. The heavy walls around her heart finally crumble into silent tears. She pulls him close, desperate to drown in this beautiful, impossible dream. Heals. He wanted to split their universe in two. On one side, the ruthless Mafia boss dripping in shadow. On the other, quiet Sunday mornings, making coffee next door to ordinary people. Heals. He truly believed he could carry the sins of the syndicate at night and be a loving husband in the light. Isabella kissed him as if the world was ending, confessing a fierce, tragic love she never thought she was capable of feeling. Days later, Heals. They turned the lock on a humble, quiet brownstone. For Isabella, stepping over that threshold wasn't just walking into a house. It was reclaiming the beautiful, fragile soul she thought the darkness had stolen forever. Heals. The camera fades, jumping forward in time. They split their world, the penthouse for syndicate business, the brownstone for their sanctuary. Slowly, a beautiful family dynamic blooms. Marcus uses the home as an escape. Heals. Arguing with Roman over movies like a brother. Isabella's mother visits weekly. Pushing past her paranoia, she stops seeing Roman as a violent mobster and finally sees a broken man desperate to heal. Even Elena becomes part of this makeshift family. Heals. Maybe you and I can learn something here. Surviving the darkest trauma can sometimes forge the strongest bonds. Feels. Roman changed. The cold, calculated enforcer just melted away. He finally let his guard down. Sure, he still carried the heavy, violent baggage of the crime syndicate, but his home life kept him anchored. 2 years into their forced arrangement, Feels. Everything shifted. Picture this, just a regular Tuesday. The late afternoon sun hits the kitchen. He watches Isabella chopping vegetables. He walks up, touches her shoulder, and asks to marry her. When she reminds him they already signed the papers, he just waves it off. To Roman, that first wedding was just a cold transaction. He wanted to burn that trauma-soaked contract and build something real. Let's look at this pivot together because it's massive. He wanted to look her in the eyes and promise his life to her. No survival tactics, no exit clauses in the Mafia rulebook. Isabella broke down in tears, nodding yes. They held a tiny, quiet ceremony a few weeks later. Just close friends in a warm room. 2 bruised survivors choosing each other over the darkness. The vows they exchanged weren't forced. They were raw, messy, and totally real. At the reception, the tension finally broke. Marcus choked up during a toast, while Elena had a few too many drinks and laughed too loud. Even Isabella's mother, shaking her head, thanked the very man who once terrified their family. Roman used to think caring about someone was a death sentence. But standing there, watching the warm glow of the room, he realized this connection wasn't a weakness. It was the greatest victory of his life. Later, in the quiet shadows of their bedroom, Isabella asked if he ever missed the rush of his old life. Roman didn't hesitate, not for a second. His father used to warn him that love made a man soft, a fatal flaw in the underworld. Roman flat out rejected that. He told her that having something to lose actually made him sharper, more grounded. He looked her right in the eye and made it clear. Building this safe, warm home meant so much more than running a criminal empire. He pulled her close, finding a quiet peace in her arms. These two had been like pawns in a brutal game, but they figured out that loving each other was the only way to survive the trauma. Fast forward 5 years. The evening light fills the living room. Isabella is rocking their little girl, Sophia. Roman walks through the door, home from a totally legal, boring desk job. He left the bloody side of the family business behind. Just a normal dad asking about dinner. Isabella smiled, soaking in how ordinary their life had become. Of course, the mob didn't just vanish. Vincent Sr. stepped down into the shadows, always watching. Roman still held the reins, but he spread the power out, keeping his own hands clean. The danger was always humming in the background, but carrying the weight together made it bearable. That night, standing on the porch and staring at the quiet streetlights, Isabella brought up the past. She asked him how he felt about the brutal way they were pushed together. Roman sighed, his voice heavy. He thought about it every single day. He hated the twisted contract and his father's sick manipulation, but he would never regret getting her. Isabella felt the exact same way. He admitted that without her, he would have become a total monster. She showed him how to be human again. In return, surviving his world forced her to find her own iron willpower. You and I both know this wasn't some fairy tale, dark romance. It was a gritty, everyday choice to keep surviving together. Their life together was complicated, definitely a bit messy, but exactly what they needed. Think about it. Roman's biggest gamble wasn't crossing a mafia boss or dodging bullets. His ultimate risk was dropping his walls and actually believing he deserved to be happy. For Isabella, who was literally sold into this nightmare, she had to redefine what strength looked like. She learned that being brave doesn't mean you aren't terrified. It means you keep moving forward while your heart pounds in your chest. No fairy tale illusions here, just their truth. They built this life on shared sacrifice, stubbornly refusing to let a violent underworld break them. In a dark empire built on fear, they found the ultimate anchor in each other. They became completely inseparable, and honestly, that meant everything.